All right, Scott, so it looks like it's just you and me this evening, man. Wouldn't you know it? We have ourselves a Carolina alum coming on, and the Miami fan in the house decides he's going to bail for the evening. Shocker that.
Yeah, that's the only proper way to avoid the situation.
Well, that's a Miami fan for you. You know, when the going gets tough, they pretty well go and hide until such time as they feel that they have, reason to celebrate something, which I never figure how they get to that point because they rarely ever do. And then
That's
they come
true.
back and talk a bunch of smack until they get their faces kicked in, and then they go back in hiding. But
Yeah.
you know what? No problem. We'll make do just the two of us. We do have ourselves an exciting guest, and I think this is going to be fun anyway. So screw them.
Yeah. Should be good.
We love you, Dave.
We show onboard computer synchronization.
Now entering the nexus of geekery and guy world. In 3, 2, 1, mark.
Hello, IT? Have you tried turning it off and on again?
This is the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast, a service of Shark Flight Publishing.
Hey kids, welcome back for episode 8 of the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. I am your host, Ian J. Malone, joined as always as my boy Scott Esther. Gonna get to him in just a second. You will notice very quickly that we are down a man this evening. Brother Daniels will not be joining us, which is fitting. It's very fitting that the lone Miami fan on this program would find it in his heart to duck out on the night we've got a North Carolina alum coming on the show. You know, the weekend after North Carolina pretty well stomped Miami into the dirt in Chapel Hill. Sure, we'll get to that here a little bit later. In the meantime, if you would like to know more about the show, you can do so via a myriad ways. We are on the World Wide Web at dudesinhyperspace.com. We're also on the Facebook and Twitter machines at the HyperDudes. If you want to get in touch with us that way on Twitter anyway, you can tweet us using the hashtag DudeMail. You can also reach us via email at dudesinhyperspace@gmail.com. Got lots of great questions in the queue for our guest this evening. So before we get to him, Scott, what's happening down in St. Pete this evening, man?
We got some nice weather now that Hurricane Dorian has cleared out.
How did you guys fare down there? Did you get a lot of nastiness or what?
We got some wind and rain on the west coast of Florida, but not too much. East coast took the brunt of it. Obviously, the Bahamas, feeling for them, and hopefully we can find the resources to get them back on their feet sooner than later.
Sure. Yeah, we got lots of questions up here about how are you guys faring in North Carolina,
Yeah.
and we did great in Raleigh, Durham. We got some rain on Thursday, Friday, and that was pretty much about it. We never lost power. We were very blessed in that regard. So definitely thoughts and prayers with the folks down in the Bahamas, and had some folks in the Outer Banks that took a little bit of a pop through this, and they're battling with that too. So thoughts and prayers with those folks. But all right, so as mentioned at the outset of the show, we got ourselves had to go to the bullpen for a guest this evening, get a little fill in for Dave. And you know him as best-selling military science fiction author and 4-time Dragon Award finalist. Man, you've got more freaking titles than I know what to do with. You're an author, you're a publisher, you're a noted speaker, you're freaking Superman. Chris Kennedy, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for putting
I have to do a truth in advertising. I've only got 3 Dragon finalists. Mark Wandry has 4. He leads the entire world in finalist spots. I'll get him next year.
There you go. Well, speaking of writing and such, let's get straight into this, man. Good grief, you've got a colorful career. You have been in the United States Navy. You have been a high school teacher. You've got a PhD. Now you're a best-selling writer and a publisher. I mean, to steal a line from the dead, man, what a long, strange trip it's been. How do you get from there to here? For those who don't know your story, how does that happen?
It really has been a long, strange trip, and it was elementary school, not high school. I had the younger ones, which you could instill discipline in. But it's the rest of that's certainly correct, and it has been a long, strange trip. The funny thing is that I never wanted to be an author or publisher. Both just sort of happened. I did 20 years in the Navy as an aviator. Then 5 years as a elementary school principal, and then did some government contracting stuff, and it just kind of happened that I had a story one day, and it worked out that sold, and did kind of well, and people saw me and said, "Hey, wow, you look like you know what you're doing. Would you publish mine and mine and mine and mine?" And I said, "Sure." And at some point, I kind of went from being just an author to a publisher as well. And, if you'd have asked my wife 6, 7 years ago, hey, what do you think about your husband being an author? She would have said, not a chance in hell. Um, it wasn't something I ever wanted to do. It just was something that happened one day. All of a sudden, I had a story, and I had to write it down to get it out of my head. And it turned out that it did kind of well, and the rest just kind of went from there.
I got to tell you, how things have changed on the wife front. I can remember our early days together hanging out at HonorCon here in Raleigh, and you were a total solo act. You came, you worked your own table, you set everything up, all of your signage, books, the whole spiel. And we got into the discussion about spouses one day. I was like, "Hey, your wife, is she into the nerd thing? She read this stuff? She watch the movies all?" He's like, "No, no, this is not her thing at all." Fast forward a number of years, and man, she is all kinds of in the mix on this stuff, and we love her for it too.
Yeah, she has always been my biggest supporter, so it's not, I guess, too far beyond the, too surprising that she's now with me. I think that the nerd lifestyle really agrees with her, and it was something that she didn't really know that was part of her. But then when I think the first time she really caught on was when she went to Dragon Con and saw the sights and the sounds, and it was everything that she really liked, and she went, "Oh my God, this is me."
Oh, Dragon Con's a thing. For those who
Yeah,
have never taken
and
that ride, Dragon Con is something else.
Yeah, she went to the first one. The next one she went down with 6 different cosplay outfits, because she was not going to let it go without her. And ever since she's come with me, traveled with me, and we have a great partnership. Doing our thing.
Cool deal. Let's turn things back to you for just a second and get back on the subject of just writing. We'll get to publishing again here in a little while, but just in terms of writing, when you started doing all of this, what was it about sci-fi? I mean, what made you go that route? Clearly, you could have written in any number of genres with your background, but what was it about spaceships and aliens and all that cool stuff that drew you to that genre?
I think that I wanted to write in sci-fi because that was what I loved growing up. It was my escape when I wasn't quite good enough at something. Growing up, I was good at academics in school, but I was probably average at best at sports, and never quite as good as my father would have liked. I don't want to say that I was always the last person picked, but it wasn't too far from it. And reading sci-fi gave me the ability to put all of that behind me, fly through space, waging battles with my phantom friends and allies. It's kind of gone on from there. And now I get to do it riding a Casper in the Four Horsemen Universe. It's escapism at its best. And it was something that I loved when I was young, and it's carried on with me, all my life.
So, Chris, I'm just getting to know you a little bit listening to this. Just curious, you referenced the different things that the sci-fi was an escape for you as you were younger. Who were those creators when you were younger that you were influenced by?
Well, certainly I liked all of the masters, the Nibbins and Pornells, and growing up through David Weber and Ringo and Correa. Some of those are a little more recent, but I think that they've definitely affected how I write. If you talk to David Weber, he'll tell you that who you are as an author is based on who you've read, and I've read just about all of the Baen authors. So I would say that even though I'm not a Baen author, at least not for another few months, in writing style, I'm probably very close to one of those because that's who I've always read.
Were there any musical influences when you were younger?
Um, no, but I will tell you that when I write, I always have on Two Steps from Hell, which is kind of an epic, music kind of thing. If you listen to their things, they've had a lot of things in Star Wars and things like that where you'll recognize their music, and it's the epic. I don't even know what to call it. But the kind of music where it's always playing when the people are striving harder and doing big deeds and things like that.
I'm a big fan of music
Nice.
myself when I
Nice.
write, and I've got that same channel on Pandora. Big, giant epic film scores, whether it's Hans Zimmer or whether it's John Williams or whatever. That's great stuff. But then, like, shifting gears, the pun intended, the project I'm working on right now, I have kind of a racing vibe going on, and I'm channeling a little bit of that. And I'm raging on the Crystal Method and Junkie XL and
As long as you're not raging on crystal meth.
no,
right.
not the crystal meth was never my thing. But
Don't
but
break
anyway,
don't Breaking Bad this thing in real life.
no,
Yeah,
no.
no kidding.
So all right, well, Chris, this actually brings us to a really good question, and this is kind of a two-parter for people who have not read you. What would you, number one, say defines a Chris Kennedy book? When they crack one of your stories, what are they going to get? What are the hallmarks for a Chris Kennedy book? And then the second part of that question is, what do you look for in the stories of others when they come to you and say, hey, man, I got a book. I want you to publish it. Check it out. What defines a good-looking book to you versus something that you're going to say, I think I'm going to pass. That's not for me.
Well, I certainly like to try and write the same sort of stories that I used to like to read. Ones that I could immerse myself in that didn't have a lot of message fiction in them. They were just escapism. I would say that my Navy experience probably bleeds through quite a bit in that my books have a large dose of self-sacrifice in them. Doing what's necessary for the good of the group rather than the good of the individual. That's probably the one thing that Star Trek really got right. That sometimes the needs of the group are greater than the needs of the individual, and I like to put that into the book. People that will sacrifice for the good of the squad or platoon or the planet. If it comes down to that. I think that is part of the military crucible and what makes military sci-fi great. As to what makes a good CKP book, I'm looking to publish the same kind of stories that I want to read. In talking with the readers, I think that CKP titles are coming out pretty much the way I want them to be. Great stories without a lot of message fiction in them that transport readers to new worlds and new universes. Whether that's here on planet Earth, for some of the urban fantasy kind of things, or somewhere out in space for the mill sci-fi. I want them to be able to immerse themselves in a book and go new places and see new things and do great deeds.
And that's definitely something that's worth pointing out for people who aren't familiar with your company but are familiar with you. Chris publishes a lot of different stuff. Yes, there's tons of military sci-fi to be found there, but there's also fantasy. There's also urban fantasy. There's also young adult fiction. There's lots of stuff. He's a very diverse guy that way when it comes to the things that he publishes. But speaking of the things that have come out of your press, you were very well known before you became a publisher for the Theogony books and the Occupied Seattle stuff and Red Tide. But the Four Horsemen Universe is what really seemed to blow the top off of Chris Kennedy Publishing. And you were very much a part of that as one of the two core authors, and then that roster eventually expanded too from just you and Mark. Talk to me about the genesis of the 4HU. How did that come about? And then where has it come since? And I know that's a big one, so I'll let you just run with it.
Yeah, I can talk about that quite a while.
A little bit.
The birth of the Four Horsemen Universe is kind of funny. It started, I guess, about 4 years ago. I was at a con called InCon Junction in Indianapolis, and Mark Wandry came up to me and said he'd like to work with me. And I said, yeah, that's great, but I'm doing this kind of thing on my own, and give me about a year, and sure, I'd love to do something with you. And he went off thinking that I was just brushing him off, but I really, was doing the Theogony books and needed to finish them. So another year goes by. I happen to see him again at InCon Junction in Indianapolis, and I went up to him and I said, "Hey, Mark, last year you said you wanted to do something. Here I am. I've tied up the things I wanted to. So what'd you have in mind?" And he says, "Oh, well, I kind of already started on it." And I said, "All right, well, great. What do you got?" And he says, "Well, it's this mill sci-fi thing, and I've got probably about half the book done." I said, "Well, that's great. Why don't you shoot it to me and Let me take a look. And I lost a lot of sleep that night because I was reading the book. He sent it to me, and I loved it. I thought this is great. I need to be part of this. So the next morning I saw him, and I was kind of haggard because hadn't gotten enough sleep. And I said, Mark, I got some bad news, man. And his face just drooped, and he was like, what? I said, I lost a lot of sleep last night because this was such a good book. We need to do this. And he's like, what? And he just, his face just lit up. And I said, you know what? We need to go talk about this. And I guess it was in the morning. It was the afternoon because we went into the bar. All good book deals happen in the bar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we sat in the bar, and we had a couple drinks, and then we had dinner. Then we had a couple more drinks, and over like 3 or 4 hours, we talked about the universe. And he said, "Well, hey, I thought about this and that," and I said, "Well, hey, what if we do that and this?" And we worked it out. And I said, "Well, where do you see this being published?" And he said, "Well, it looks like you're doing good. How about you publish it all?" And I said, "Absolutely, that'd be great. That's kind of how I wanted to do it anyway." And so we went forward from there. And the first couple books were a hit, and it was we were like, wow, this is really cool. But the universe that we were building was so big, that we wanted to expand it a little bit more. So I asked some of my writer friends, if they'd like to write a short story in the universe. I was hoping for about 14 stories to put together an anthology, and I got 42, which grew into the first three anthologies because it was just so much fun that everybody wanted to play. So not only did that expand the universe, it also provided a lot of great material that grew into full-length stories, which then got folded into the main storyline in some places, and in some places it's kind of grown into its own thing. So we currently have the main storyline, some outlying tales that haven't been folded in quite yet, a storyline about the rise of the peacemakers, and then a young adult line that's helped make the universe accessible to some of the younger readers. Right now, we have 40 books out in right about 2 years.
That's a lot of production right there, man. That's
Well,
a
the readers said, we want more, we want more, we want more. And last year I said, okay, well, I'll promise you that I will publish a book every 3 weeks all year. And I did. And I'm pretty much on track for doing it again this year.
Now, talk to me about how that works. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because really only the diehard people who are into publishing care about this kind of stuff. But just this is my show, people, so back off for a second and let me just do my thing. How does that work? Because to put out that kind of production on that timetable and stick to schedule, it takes a lot of work to publish a book. From the editing process to formatting to cover design to print, not even touching into audiobooks. That's a lot of time to go through that process. How is it that you can crank out 40 books in a year and stick to that?
Well, it starts with great authors, and you're one of them, Ian.
Thanks,
You know,
sir.
having started out as one of the anthology authors and then written a full book, and that's really how it happened. We did the anthologies, and the reader said, "We want to know more. Tell us more about this person. Tell us more about this peacemaker. Oh my gosh, it's a race of cat assassins. We need more of that." And as the reader said, "We want more of this." I signed up the authors and said, "Hey, love the short story. What can you do to make it a full one?" And we got some great authors. We have 6 core authors. We've had about 15 authors that have written. That's a good one. Written full length stories, and then probably we're probably getting close to 100 authors total that have written anthology stories. There are currently 6 anthologies, with the 7th one about to come out in 3 weeks.
So now bear in mind, folks, everything we're talking about here is publishing people's books. But you still put out yourself about how many books a year?
I was hoping for 8 this year. It's probably going to be closer to 5 or 6. But I've also done a bunch of short stories as well.
So that's
Um,
6 books. That's one every 2 months. Talk to me about what your day looks like. How do you juggle all this? And I would imagine your military background comes into play here when it comes to structure and organization. It's got to in order to be able to crank out that kind of production.
yeah, if I wasn't in the military, I don't think there's any way that I could have been as successful doing this. I still wake up at about 6:30 in the morning. I get up, I come into the office, I do social media for 45 minutes, and then I start writing. And I write all morning. And I break at about 1 or 2 o'clock. I'll get some lunch, grab a shower, and then I do publishing stuff in the afternoon, editing and such, and then at night, if there's nothing going on, not doing something with the wife or any of the kids, then I'll probably do some of the kind of ancillary kind of things like cover design and things like that, book formatting, that I do. So I work long days, most days, but that also gives me the opportunity to go do other things. If a couple days ago my daughters needed to move their apartment, I didn't have to take time off. I just went and helped them move.
Yeah.
So I've got the ability to do the things I need to do, but that's because I work long days the other days.
I gotcha. Well, we talked a lot about the Four Horsemen universe. That is a shared universe, meaning there are lots and lots of authors that have contributed works set in that particular sandbox. But that's not the only shared universe you're a part of. You've actually got several out of your shop that are active right now. What's that all about? What are some of the other series that folks can find from CKP?
Well, there's a couple of great series besides the Four Horsemen universe that we have going. The first is a post-apocalyptic world that I'm actually writing in myself, called The Fallen World. It was started by Christopher Woods. I've got 2 books into it. He has one. There's also an anthology. There is another one that he's turned in, another one that Alex Rath has turned in. Several other books are in the making for that. It is a lot of fun. It is basically 40, 60 years from now, the corporations take over the world and then they nuke each other into the dirt. And the fallen world starts from there and moves on. And it is gritty and a lot of fun to write in.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
it is.
It was one of those things. I read Christopher Wood's first book, This Fallen World, and I went, I got to write this. Yeah. Chris, can I please? So I put down a story, and that wasn't enough. I needed to write somebody else's story, and I've got some words already into a third one, and so we've got a lot going on there. We've got another series that is science fiction called the Salvage Title Universe. That was Kevin Steverson. He came to me. He was unknown, and he said, "Hey, I've got this great idea." And I pressed him a little more, well, hey, what do you do? Who are you? What have you done? And everything I asked him for, he had an answer. And I was like, wow, you seem like you're really prepared to be an author. And he said, well, I should be. I read your book. I was like, well,
there you go.
He says, yeah, your self-publishing book. I read it and I've done it all. So, I'm ready. And I was like, yes, sir, you are, and I would love to publish you. He said, oh, by the way, I've got a Twitter following of 35,000 because I manage a band. And I was like, all right, you had me at you read my book. But we put that out, and it's done really, really well. For an unknown author, it's just skyrocketed because it's fun. It's exactly what CKP is all about. It's a fun universe. And I had some other authors that said, hey, could I write a story in that universe? And we said, sure. So we're about to have an anthology in that universe. And then it's going to open up as a shared kind of universe as well. So that's, I'm really excited about that. The anthology comes out next month, I believe. Mm-hmm. And that I think is going to do just super well. Kevin also has a book that'll come out next month as well. So that universe is going strong. Let's see, as a publisher, I'm also really excited about an alternate history warfare anthology series we're doing. This is something I'm doing with James Young. It's called the Phases of Mars. The first book, which is called Those in Peril, deals with alternate history of a naval flavor. That book's already out. The second book, To Slip the Surly Bonds, comes out Friday and deals, in case you couldn't guess, with aviation warfare. And I think that one is going to be a huge success. I've already had more people ask me about that than any other book that I've ever put out. It doesn't hurt that Taylor Anderson has a Destroyermen short story in there that this is the only place that his fans are going to be able to find. So that's pretty cool. Getting him to write in it. We've got some other good names. And then the third book in this series, which is Trouble in the Wind, which is an homage to Kipling and ground warfare, already has 6 A-listers signed up for it. And it's going to be, I don't know, what makes a huge success look small. Whatever that is, that's what this one's going to be.
Nice. Well, now, speaking of anthologies, you've clearly done a lot of those out of CKP, and then you're in others as an author. Sticking on the publishing front, though, what is it that you like about those? Because I know there are a lot of publishers who aren't real high on doing anthologies, but yet you seem to not only enjoy doing them, but you really make them work and they're profitable. So what is it about anthologies that you just enjoy doing?
I don't enjoy doing them. Anthologies suck.
There's an edited question for you.
they, they well, I mean, if you look at it, trying to herd one author is painful. Herding 14 or 16 is tough. Getting their stories on time, then getting them to return contracts, then paying them, paying 16 people rather than one. It's a pain in the butt. Why do I do it? Because it works. And I think that I've developed a strategy for it that works. If you had, let's call it 15 authors, I'll try and break that down with 5 A-listers, 5 B-listers, and then a group of newbies, and get great stories from all of them. The pros get paid and draw in people, with their followings, and the newbies get a start, as well as getting paid too, of course. That whole mercenary feel flows throughout CKP from the Four Horsemen universe. Everyone likes getting paid, even if we're not killing aliens. But it's great because when I first started out, I had put out a couple books and I got invited to an anthology that really got my name out there some. So I like to pay it forward and give some other people, a start. Sure. And I think that I forget how many it is now, but we were doing a panel and we had like 10 different authors that were sitting there that I've published, and about 5 of them, their first pro sale had been through me doing an anthology. And then they'd gone on to write full-length works. And I think that is the power of the anthology. If you can get some good, strong A-listers in there to bring in readers and people that are excited about it and want to get a start and are going to go talk to all their friends and family as well, it works. And it's worked well for us. And I think that it will continue to work well for us because of how we put it together and how we pay everybody.
Well, and I would think there's a certain, and you used this word a second ago, so I'll go ahead and snatch it from you. There's a certain strategic value of anthologies in the day and age of social media, because let's face it. I mean, as authors, there are very few of us who are Stephen Kings, where we get to just say, "All right, publisher, here's my book. Go sell it and make me a mint." Nobody gets to do that anymore. We have to get on social media and tell people about it. We got to sell it. We got to talk to bloggers. We got to do podcasts. We got to do all the things to let the world know that, hey, we got a book out there and it's awesome. You should go check it out. And it seems that, when
if you have 14 voices doing it, it's a lot louder than if you have one voice.
There you go. Many hands or voices make light work. So yeah, that's always been something that I've thought was very wild and very advantageous about doing anthologies.
And I think that, that was probably what helped grow the Four Horsemen universe. And hopefully, it's going to help grow the other universes that we have that are shared universes. pulling in more people, gets the word out to other sets of readers, and obviously as an author, that's what it's all about. Getting your work in front of somebody that's going to love it.
Sure. Well, kind of segueing back onto the topic of shared universes, that's another thing that you've obviously made very, very successfully through CKP. You talked about the process of building an anthology, enlisting authors. Anthologies, every author has a different story. They're all bundled into one book, and away you go. With a shared universe, you have to weave entire novels into one giant tapestry that makes that shared universe. Speaking as a publisher, but also as somebody who's obviously written in a number of these now, what is it that you like about that process? Whether it's the collaboration with the authors or just the process itself of growing something that's so much bigger than what you could do with one book yourself, what is it about that process of building a shared universe that you like so much?
I think that, probably the best thing about it is that it's given us a chance to find new things. When we've done shared universe anthologies, we haven't put a lot of rules into it. We'll give the authors a Bible and say, here's the things that you can't do. So go and find new things to do. And in general, the authors have really wowed us with some of the stories and some of the concepts they've come up with and the stories they've told. And that, is why the anthologies have done so well and why they've gone on to be full length stories. We didn't make the authors do something. We let them, create. And I think that, when you do that, you really let their juices flow and they'll come out with something really good for you. I've been in a couple anthologies where what you could do was very narrowly defined, and it made it really hard to write in those. For our anthologies, we've kept it pretty open, where authors could do just about anything. And sometimes to Mark Wandry's chagrin, because people have gone places where he had wanted to go and he was like, but I wanted to do that, and it's like, well, sorry. The harder part is just trying to make them relevant sometimes,
Right.
because we don't, stories are great, but readers of that shared universe want them to be relevant. They don't just want to have a story. They want to know that what that story is and does is going to be important to the universe and to the main storyline that's going on. So we've intentionally sat down and tried to get all the authors together and figure out how we were going to include some of the short stories and then long stories to make them important to the universe. And by doing so, we've grown the universe. The Four Horsemen Universe has 6 core authors now. And we talk a lot about where we're going and what we're doing and how we're tying in short stories and other long stories, so that everything's important. And I think the readers are starting to catch on. They have to go back and read the short stories, because if they miss the anthologies, they miss stuff, and
Sure.
it makes them mad. I got to know that. How come you didn't tell me that? What about this guy? Oh, well, that's back in Fistful of Credits. Dang it! I got to go get that.
Right.
And that's good. It makes them all of the books we put out are relevant, which makes them worth reading.
Sure. It's a trip to go to cons and speak with some of the readers and just see how locked in they are on every thread of story that's told in a universe. Yeah, we'll use 4HU as an example because it's obviously the biggest one that you've got going on right now. But I was at LibertyCon, and guy came up and just wanted to start talking to me about Freebird Rising just because he liked a family tradition, and he could
Which
tell
is
me
Ian's book in the Four Horsemen
Yeah,
Universe, for those of you that don't know.
That's mine. So my sci-fi homage to Leonard Skinner, which was a blast to write. But I mean, he came out. He was just like, man, the minute I read A Family Tradition, I was really hoping that they would do a book. And when you finally did it, like, it was the one I was waiting for. It was fantastic. But there was nothing that he didn't know about the entire 4HU timeline, from Cartwright's all the way down to where you guys were at the time, which I want to say luck is not a factor. Was that the current event at LibertyCon? You put out one like every other day, so it's hard to remember. but I mean, they were
sure. We'll say sure.
They were,
right.
but they were keyed in on it, man. And there's nothing that they miss. So that is a tribute to you and the series that you've put out and the authors that you've surrounded yourself with, in order to be able to put that together. But,
well, and that's honestly what it comes down to is great authors, and the anthologies give me the opportunity to find new great authors,
right.
And give them a start that, in the days of traditional publishing they would never have gotten. Quite frankly, I mean, a lot of them are good, but they need polish, and a lot of times it's easy for trad pubs to go, yeah, you know what, you're close, but go figure out something else and come back.
Right.
Whereas, I can grab them and go, okay, well, here, let me work with you. Let me show you this. Here's some things you can do to tell the story better. And turn them into great authors, and the readers have loved it. The readers are like, wow, every author you bring in is incredible. Everyone that's written in the Four Horsemen universe, I've loved, so that right there is my measure of success. When the readers love it and think that what you're doing is working, hooray!
All righty. Well, speaking of fans and readers and listeners and so on and so forth, we do have questions from some of said listeners and readers and fans. And
Hit
so
me,
forth.
baby.
All right. Chris Kennedy edition of Dude Mail coming up right here.
You got mail.
All right, question number 1 comes to us from Chad. Hey, Chris, thanks for coming on the show. I'm a longtime fan of the 4HU, as is a good buddy of mine. That said, it's time to put one thing to bed once and for all. True or false? Real CASPer pilots do not need rainbow-mutant stuffed animal toys while they fly in CASPers to kill aliens and get paid. Cheers, and thanks for fielding my dude mail. Thank you, Chad. Chris, what say you?
Well, sorry, just getting over a cold. Well, Chad, I think that you'd have to ask my Four Horsemen co-author Mark Wandry about that. I personally don't know anyone that needs a rainbow mutant stuffed animal, but he may have something different to say about that. Real CASPer pilots probably don't need them. Maybe CASPer leaders do. I don't know. I know that my wife sent him an awful lot of rainbow pony things last year, so I don't know. Maybe Mark's a closet fan.
Who's to say? It's been a topic much debated at a many a con. All right, question number 2 comes to us from John Doe. That's not conspicuous at all.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? Chris, how long have you known that semicolons are evil? They are the devil's handiwork. I think I know who that one came from.
Well, I'm guessing that's Christopher Woods, and I have known that for about 4 hours now. When he sent me a text and said somebody stuck in a semicolon into Legend, which is one of his books. Who would do such a dastardly thing? And I'm like, one semicolon in the book? He's like, they're the devil. I was like, but one semicolon? He's like, there's 293 of them. I'm like, dude, I didn't put 293 in your book. You did that. I did not. So it was only about 4 hours ago that I finally found out that semicolons are the devil. I kind of like them. I think they connect sentences well, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm not even going to lie. He blew up my Facebook box this afternoon going, dude. I don't know how many dude mail questions you got, but you got to ask him. You got to ask him. Ask him on your show. It was like bing, 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 bing. My phone exploded. Anyway.
Well, I asked him back. I said, when did you start drinking again? Because I was like, what? This is the most random question I've ever gotten. And he doesn't drink. And, so I was kidding. But I was like, dear God, what is your issue, man? What's wrong with semicolons? They're the devil. No, they're not. But apparently he thinks they are, and so I don't know.
All right, next question comes from
that was the weirdest conversation I've ever had. I was like, all right, what are you on right now?
I love Chris Woods, man. Him and Steverson both are fantastic guys.
Super dudes, absolutely super dudes. Love publishing both of them, and the fans love them too.
For those who are just now checking out this podcast, one of Chris's other core authors, Kevin Eikenberry, we had a fantastic interview with him back and around, I think it was episode 3 or 4. Talked everything from 4-HU to the craft of writing to PGA golf, because he's an avid golfer. So definitely, if you guys didn't get a chance to check that out, go back into the vault and pull that one up.
He's got
Kevin
like a
great
golfer's
interview.
physique too. He's got that long, I'll bet he can drive the ball forever.
Yeah, yeah, I know, right? We actually had a great discussion at LibertyCon this year about how altitude changes your golf game in Colorado versus coming down into the South where it's nice and humid. He had some sort of a huge in-depth response to, right, scientifically, this is how the ball carries. Once you strike it at this angle from the club and you have exit velocity, I'm like, dude, you lost me.
Okay, he's a nerd. Got it.
It's all about launch angle. It's all
really
about launch angle.
Says the baseball guy.
Exactly.
All right, next question comes from Will. What up, dudes? Fellow baseball-loving geek here. Chris, rumor around the con mill says that you're a Yankees fan. Clearly, you are a man of intellect and talent. How could something go so horribly wrong with your allegiances? Thanks for the mail.
Well, I am not a bandwagon kind of guy. I was born in Detroit and then raised in Connecticut. And while I was there, I picked up baseball and picked up the Yankees. And then, about the time I was 9, we moved down to the South. And in, central North Carolina, there was no baseball at the time. Still not really any pro thing real close. So I kept the Yankees. Oops, sorry.
Everybody's got to be a fan of somebody.
Yeah, I mean, at least I remain true to them, even in the years when that other crappy team in red that has stockings on their hats, even when they're doing well. Happily, they're not. So
it's interesting, Chris, being down here in the Tampa Bay area and having worked for another AL East team who is currently sitting atop of the wild card spot in the East right now. It's interesting watching all the northern folks come down here and talk about their allegiances with the Yankees and the Red Sox and even Baltimore, and we get Minnesota fans and we get Tigers fans and all kinds of stuff going on here. Spring training helps that out a little bit, but so I always have to question just a little bit where people's fandom comes from. If it was born into them, if it was something that was influenced by a family member down the line, or if they've actually ever even been to the city or been to a game, or how that all shakes out.
One of my earliest memorances of sport is I was probably 5 or 6, and Dad took me to a Detroit Tigers game, and just walking into the stadium and coming through the entryway out onto the field, that was magic. That was that it wasn't sexual at 5, but it was kind of like angels were singing, and it was something that was so incredible that I remember it now nearly 50 years later. Just because it was like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. This place is beautiful. Don't ever take me from here, Daddy. So that, like I said, born in Detroit, but then moved to Connecticut, picked up the Yankees. I'm not going to say that the Red Sox are 17 and a half games back, but they're 17 and a half games back.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I have no love lost for the Boston Red Sox. So
and I'm pretty sure that puts them out of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough climb. They've been known to collapse in September before, I think epically, just as of a couple years ago. But yeah, it'll be fun down the stretch here to see who ends up taking that last AL wildcard spot. Between Tampa Bay, you've got Cleveland right there in the mix. Oakland as well. So they're all pretty tight. Should be a fun down the stretch.
Real quick before I throw out our last dude mail question, since you guys are clearly on a roll here, I'll give both of you guys a shot to pick it right here and right now. Who's playing in the World Series? Scott, I'll start with you.
I think I'm going to have to go with the Dodgers coming from the NL. I don't see anyone being able to hang with them. Offensively, they've just got too much firepower at the moment, and I think that'll carry through in October. On the AL side, it's interesting. You'll get into a couple of short series with with the wild card teams, and then even the divisional series, 5-game series can go either way, and there's a lot of teams that are pretty close. But I think I'm going to have to give the nod to the Astros just for the pitching alone.
Sure.
Verlander and Greinke and Cole, and that's going to be tough to beat in a short series.
Well, they're scoring a butt ton of runs too. I mean,
Yeah.
their run differential is higher than any other American League team. They don't, they have every bit as good a record as the Yankees, but they're outscoring people in buckets. The Yankees score a lot of runs, but they also give up a lot of runs. So the two of them. When the two of them meet, it'll be the immovable object and the irresistible force, and we'll see. The Yankees haven't done so well against the Astros here recently, especially in playoffs. I'm going to be a homer and take the Yankees anyway because that's who I want to win. It could go either way, and I'm hoping that they will out homer them. Like you said, it could very well be Houston, and I agree with you on the Dodgers. That would be who I would see coming from the National.
Okay, last question. This comes to us from Eric. Hey, Chris, it was a pleasure getting to talk college hoops and books with you at Fantasy in Raleigh this year. From one Tar Heel alum to another, what are your thoughts on Mack Brown being back at UNC, especially now that we are 2-0? Go Heels, and thanks for taking my dude mail. There you go. Another Tar Heel. What you got to say, Chris?
What am I going to say? I'm going to say that I'm going to have to hold my nose.
Oh.
When Mack Brown left us, I learned to hate him. I've pulled against him ever since he left to go to Texas. I've pulled against him in everything he's done. If he was even driving to the store, I would hope that he wrecked on the way. That's about how much I like Mack Brown. That said, beating USC in Miami is a good start. But at the end of the day, he's still a money-grubbing jerk. I may forget that. If they go like 12-0 and win a big bowl game. But they would probably have to go 12-0 about 10 years in a row. What I'm saying is he'll have to do a lot to get into my good graces. But it sure is fun to see them start 2-0 for once.
Sure.
That hasn't happened in a long time. They've probably started 2-0 a couple of times, but it was beating up directional teams. Northwest, Center Valley State,
Right.
And something like that. To beat USC and Miami, well, those are pretty respectable teams, and it was they came back, in USC game's case, they came back and beat them at the end. So it wasn't that USC wasn't expecting it or let down. I mean, they knew what they were getting, and Carolina took it from them.
Sure.
Which is something that hasn't been a Carolina tradition here in a long time.
Well, you and I had this discussion at the bar over at LibertyCon, and I said this to you then, and I stand by it now. What Mack Brown had the ability to do was step back into North Carolina and do what neither Cutcliffe at Duke or Dave Doran at NC State has been able to do in the last 5-6 years. And that is lock down your state recruits, your in-state recruits. If you're a 5-star athlete and you're getting recruited by Bama and Clemson, you're not staying in North Carolina. That's just the way of things right now in college football. But if you're a 4-star quarterback who's eyeing Florida State, where you can go down and get killed by their offensive line, or maybe stay home in Chapel Hill, and your dad is in his 40s and he remembers Mack Brown in the 90s, he's got dad whispering in his ear saying, listen, son, all things being equal, stay in Chapel Hill. And that's what kids are doing. And it was all
That guy's a
depend on,
jerk, but he wins games.
hey man, you know what? He's locking down the state for recruits and he's backing it up with wins on the field. And for all the talk right now in college football programs across America about flipping the culture from bad culture to good culture, that guy flipped Carolina's culture from 2-10 last year under Fedora to being 2-0 with wins over South Carolina and Miami. He's rolling right now, man.
He is. And like I said, I'm going to hold my nose.
And realistically, you'd have to think that they're looking at a succession plan here. Mack Brown's probably not long for that job. He's not going to put in 5-10 years in the coaching position. So they're not looking for, hey, Mack, we need you to turn the program around, and then we're going to hand it off to this person that maybe he handpicks or what have you. But you got to think that this is a 3, maybe 4-year project for him.
Sure.
And if they win a lot of games, maybe I'll let go of my nose.
Chris, thank you so much for coming on the program, man. Before I let you go, tell folks where they can find you.
They can find me at chriskennedypublishing.com. They can find every book that we have on the site there and join the mailing list so that they can get books early before they're even released.
You also get free short stories if you sign up for your mailing list, right?
You do. You get a free short story in the Four Horsemen Universe. One of the early stories from the very beginnings.
There you go. And then Facebook, Twitter, social media, you do all those?
I do. Predominantly Facebook. Haven't done a lot on Twitter recently. Just not enough hours in the day.
Understand that, my friend. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program. It was an absolute treat. You are welcome to come back anytime to talk books, to talk college football, baseball, you name it, man. Just come back and hang anytime.
All right. As long as we can hate on the Red Sox, I'm in.
I'm all about it.
That's easy to do.
In spades. So, all right, brother. Take care of that cold, and thanks for playing hurt tonight, man.
Thanks, ma'am.
All right, Scott, what do you say we wind things down with a little bit of White Flag?
Perfect.
White flag.
Okay, folks, as you know by now, White Flag is the closing stretch of the show where we kind of talk about what's on our radar coming up in the next couple of weeks. Can be geek stuff, can be sports stuff, guy stuff, cooking stuff, tailgating stuff, you name it. Pretty much if we like it, we talk about it because that's the way we roll. So just two of us tonight. So, Scott, I'll go ahead and kick things off with you. What are you looking forward to coming up the next few weeks?
Well, let's see. We've got football, and some more football, even though I don't know how much I want to pay attention to Saturday afternoons anymore.
Yep. Hear you.
I might spend a little more time on Sunday afternoon checking out what's going on the pro side, but that's Saturdays so far have been tough to watch.
Yeah.
As a Florida State fan so far.
Well, we talked about this a little bit before we got on the show, and I really try not to turn this into a Florida State podcast, but we all have such deep ties to that program that, I mean, everything we do, particularly for college sports, comes through the lens of the Garnet and Gold. But but I think Saturday night is it for Willie Taggart, man. I think he's got to go up there and by some miracle, hook or crook, whatever, they have to win that game. I think it's more likely that they're going to get up there and they're going to get blown out because I just don't think they're prepared. And if that happens, I think that's it. And I think it would suck to have to fire a guy after 2 years, but I just don't see any way that you can justify not if things go as bad as I think they're going to go after this weekend if they lose. You come back and you face that stretch of Syracuse, NC State, Clemson, Miami. Heck, man. I mean, based off of the way they've played so far, they could drop every single one of those. Now you're not even looking at being bowl eligible. And you do that coming off of a 5-7 season with this many blue chip athletes on the roster. I don't care how bad the culture is. You just can't do that and keep your job. He's completely mishandled his staff, and I get that some of that was not his fault. He was a coach that came in the first year when you had the early signing period in December. So not only was he trying to hire a staff, he was trying to save a recruiting class. And he got told by the administration, you can't hire your top candidates for a bunch of key positions. So he had to scramble to find guys, and he whiffed on all of them, offensive and defensive coordinators in particular. That's on him. I mean, I get it that it was horrible, horrible conditions, and nobody wants to come in under those kinds of constraints. But, man, that's why you're paid $5 million a year. And he just doesn't look like he has a clue for any sort of direction whatsoever.
Yeah. Worst case scenario is that they play a close game and either win a close one or lose a close one because that's going to give people hope.
Well, I mean, if he can just find a way to scratch out 6 wins – And that's a serious downshift from what we talked about in our college football preview with Schleybaugh. We were saying this team should be able to make 8 wins. With this schedule, with Kendall Briles' offense, you should be able to hammer. Hey, give me 8 wins. That's a good year. Now I think you have to scratch out 6 in order to keep your job. 6 means you go back to a bowl. Granted, it's the toilet bowl in Walla Walla, Washington. But, but it is a bowl, and I think that you combine that with the fact that financially that they just can't afford to fire him. That would buy him another year, and he'd be able to fire his defensive coordinator and retool the defense the same way he did this offseason with the offense, and then you might have a chance. But if they miss a bowl, this fan base is going to check out on that program. You already saw it last week versus ULM. They're done.
Yeah.
And you really can't
I
blame
totally
them.
agree.
It's not over the top to blame them for feeling that way. It's not irrational based off of what we've seen.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said I wasn't going to turn this into a Florida State podcast, and here I go doing my thing.
Well, it happens that way sometimes. That's the passion. That's what people are looking for is passion in there.
That's college football, man, and it's why I can talk that way. Listen, I follow the NFL. I'm a Buccaneers fan, have been for years, and I still follow the NFL and I keep an eye on it. But it's just there's something about college football, and I love it. And a lot of people who aren't from down south just don't really get that. But to those of us who do, man, it's just so sweet this time of year. And for the 4th straight year now, it looks like our season's going to be done in September. And you want to talk about a swift kick to the testicles for somebody who's just a diehard college football fan. That is a tough pill to swallow this many years straight. At some point, man, you got to give us some reason to want to turn the television on or be in the stands on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I definitely feel you there. But beyond the college football, beyond what's going on in the NFL, because I'm kind of in the same way with my Buccaneers down here, and I know you probably feel the same way too. I'm really looking forward to watching how this MLB postseason in the last month of the season shakes out, to see who gets in and who's left out. We touched on it with Chris, but like I said, I think the Dodgers are going to be good. I think Houston's going to be good. The Yankees certainly have a shot. You can never sort of count them out, but they're kind of limping into the postseason. I kind of see them taking their foot off the gas a little bit here towards the end, and I don't see that happening for Houston. But so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about upcoming release of the Disney Plus platform with Mandalorian getting started and those types of things. Just talking it over with my kids, and they're getting excited about the fact that some of the stuff is going to be available, and talking about where all this is going to shake out. A lot of good stuff coming up. Should be a great fall.
No doubt. We've talked about this a lot on this program, but I'm going to hit it again because it's back in the news this week. Joker is looking like it's going to be something special. And I'm really not trying to get over the moon excited about this film, but it took top prize at the Venice freaking Film Festival. Now, bear in mind, that means nothing to me because I don't care about the art scene. Like the artsy fartsy movies about potted plants and teenage pregnancy, that just doesn't resonate with me. And that's that crowd. But having said that, it is almost unheard of to hear of a film like this getting that kind of recognition from a crowd like that. So that in and of itself tells me this is going to be different. So very, very much amped now to just go peek under the curtain and see what Joker is going to be all about. That's coming October 6th, if memory serves. Yeah. As discussed, I'm not going to not watch college football as much as it breaks my heart to see what Florida State is right now. I'm going to continue to watch every week. Heck, I had to freaking resubscribe to cable so I could get the ACC network so I can watch them. But lots of other good storylines playing out around college football. So interested to see. Really, we talked about what LSU could be in the SEC this year with this new offense of theirs, and it looks like they may have something to say. So, Auburn does not look like they're going to be a pushover this year under Gus Malzahn, so that could be fun to watch. North Carolina, 2-0 in the ACC. Maybe the Coastal won't be such a trash heap after all. Between them, Virginia, there could be some stuff worth watching there. So, lots of good storylines around college football that don't include my program that I think will be a lot of fun to watch. Although, thank God for NASCAR. My man Kevin Harvick is heading into the playoffs on a roll. Wins his second Brickyard 400 this past weekend. Fantastic race, fantastic finish. It's always great when your guy beats the field by 4 seconds. I know that's not good for anybody else, but it's awesome for me. Also, shout out to my man Bubba Wallace for bringing the 43 car for Richard Petty Motorsports home in a third place finish at the Brickyard. Love to see it. For those who follow me on Twitter, I love that kid. He's just so much fun. He's full of charisma, personality, and I think he's a heck of a wheel man. I covered him when he was just a kid when I worked at Charlotte Motor Speedway back in the day. Little drop there. But just an exciting kid, an exciting young talent. I think there's a lot of that in NASCAR that's finally starting to peek through, and some of that is really going to be showcased now in their postseason, which starts up this next weekend. So really, really, I think that's going to be a fun tournament to watch, and really hoping my guy can come home with his second championship. So
yeah, that was a fun bit of nostalgia to see that car cross the line and do well.
Well, they are the little team that could. They are so vastly underfunded in that car. And, for those who want to jab fingers at Bubba and say he's overrated, you can't know that. All right. The difference in Bubba Wallace and Danica Patrick, and Danica got her fair share of coverage because she was charismatic and because she gave a great interview. Difference is Danica Patrick was driving a car and the kind of equipment that wins championships. And if you don't believe me, look around at all of her teammates who were in the playoffs every year, and Kevin Harvick won championships in those cars. So she had the kind of equipment that people wait their entire careers just to qualify in. She was in it for 4 or 5 years and brought home, 2 top 10 finishes the entire time? So I can pretty well say without any hesitation, she just wasn't a very good race car driver. Bubba hasn't had that chance. He's driving essentially with an arm or a wheel, as it were, tied behind his back. They are so underfunded in the 43 that there's just no way to know truly what he is and is not capable of. He needs to be in that kind of equipment where he can step up and challenge with the big boys wheel for wheel every week. And I really hope he gets that opportunity. I think it would be great if Petty could find some money to really step up their operation, but ultimately I don't know that Bubba is going to realize his success if he's meant to have it in that car. Question is, which team is going to step up and hire him, because his contract runs through next year. Either way, I just want the kid to have success. I like him. He's got a lot of personality. He's great for the sport. And he's just a good ambassador of fun and racing, and you can't go wrong with that combination. So, all right, thanks again to Chris Kennedy for coming on the program. We will have that gentleman back anytime he wants to come. Scott, my man, always a pleasure chatting with you. When Dave comes back, we'll definitely catch his thoughts on It Chapter 2. That was a big one that he was looking forward to.
That's true.
So I know he's had a chance to see that. He's going to have some thoughts to weigh in on that. Closing out, man, you know where to find us, dudesinhyperspace.com, if you want to know about more about the program, or if maybe, hey, you want to advertise with us, we got opportunities. Come see us at dudesinhyperspace.com. You can also email the show, dudesinhyperspace@gmail.com, Facebook and Twitter at the Hyper Dudes. If you want to talk to us or shoot us your dude mail questions with the hashtag dude mail, whatever, man. We just love talking to the people. And if you love talking to us, moreover, if you love listening to us, leave them reviews. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you subscribe. If it gives you the opportunity to leave 5 stars and a blurb, we would really appreciate it if you would do it. That helps us get the podcast up in the rankings and let other people find us and come join the party. So thanks again for everybody for tagging along, and we will see you guys next time on the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. Have a good one. See you.
See ya.